Give it a few seconds. We've got everybody joining.
Good afternoon, everyone.
All right, I'll kick us off. And Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome to 2024. I am Maribel Rivera. I am the Vice President of Strategy and Client Engagement at ACEDS. I am joined today by my partners for ION ESI, Jared Coseglia, founder and CEO of True Staffing, and Michael Quartararo, President of ACEDS. Hello, hello.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you both doing?
Okay.
Ready?
Yeah.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Are we ready to kill it this year? I think we've got some great stats that are going to tell us that we've got some good things that we can focus on for 2024. Is that right?
It always is right. Yes. If you're coming for stats, if you're coming for trends, if you're coming to attempt to predict what the future of the e-discovery job market will look like and how it will behave, you've come to the right place. We've got like a record-breaking number of people, I think, on today's webinar, which is really exciting. So we really appreciate everybody, spreading the word and telling your friends. And we're going to continue to provide really valuable information in real time for everybody every month.
Every month. That's exactly what we're here for. We really want to talk about what's happening in jobs in the industry and what we can do for the careers. Right? So let's kick it off. Jared, show us what we got.
All right, so let's start with the trends for the last month. So where we left off in December, we found that in December, as we had predicted, and we had a whole conversation around this too, contract staffing increased pretty aggressively. And for the first time in 2023, December had an almost 3-to-1 ratio of offers accepted being contractors instead of direct hires. So that means for every one direct hire, we placed 3 people on contract in the month of December. And that's a pretty dramatic ratio. And we're actually seeing that ratio continue to play out in the beginning of this year. Look, a lot of that is because people look for holiday coverage. A lot of it also is because in the beginning of the new year in January, people are slow to make decisions and kind of get ramped back up into full-time hiring. That is a pretty consistent trend regardless of market trends. But people are moving pretty swiftly on contractors right now, and there's a lot of contract opportunity out there. The second biggest trend is the speed of hire for ESI project managers and analysts accelerated in December by 10 days, which means people are making decisions faster on mid-market hires. We went from 40 to 30 days at law firms and vendors. It's also unusual to see the law firms moving at the same pace of the vendors, but they're needing to, because what started happening in November and December is candidates started getting multiple offers, including counter offers, at the point of hire. One of the statistics some of you who've been with us for a number of months may remember me touting at the end of December or mid-December was that we hadn't had somebody receive a counter offer, much less accept one, in nearly 170 days. And that was a record-breaking length of time that no candidate we represented that we received an offer for got a counter, and certainly if they didn't get one, they didn't accept one. That all changed in the month of December. 10% of the ESI job seekers that we got offers for in the month of December received counteroffers, and 7.5% of them took those counteroffers. This is a remarkably high percentage of people accepting counteroffers. Anybody who's worked with me knows that my feeling on counteroffers is pretty stern, that you should never accept one, you should never extend one, and that once a candidate has gone and looked and received another offer from another employer, statistics tell us, and these are Bureau of Labor statistics on a national level year over year, that between 90 and 96% of the time that someone accepts a counteroffer, they wind up leaving or getting fired within the next 6 months. So counteroffers rarely work out. They're usually band-aids for both the employee and employer finding a way out of their current arrangement. But we did see a lot of people get them and take them. And I think part of that is because employers are realizing how difficult it may be to get the budget to replace somebody that leaves. It may be how difficult the process will be to replace somebody who leaves. And putting a Band-Aid on that, at least for the next 3 to 6 months, might be the best solution for a lot of employers and employees, because we can definitely tell you that there's going to be cautiousness but more volume in opportunities in the first 2 quarters. But by the 3rd and 4th quarter of this year, we expect there to be a pretty frenetic amount of hiring as the industry continues to scale and grow.
I want to ask you something about that.
Yes.
We both got questions. All right. I just had a quick question. Maybe it overlaps with yours, Mike. Is I don't know if you're tracking this, and this is the highest I've seen it in the trends that we've been doing over the last year, over 18 months. Are you tracking also from those that do take a counter offer, how many come back in 6 months to a year, looking for a job again?
Oh, it's 90 to 96%. And not come looking for a job. They usually come looking at around the 3 to 4 month window, or they never stop looking, right? They just received a bigger offer and are now recalibrating their expectations, going back to market based on their new base salary compensation. So and particularly I would say at the lower end of the market, which we're going to talk about today, at the end of our statistics with some new data that shows that, look, somebody goes from 80 to 90 with a counter offer is now contending for jobs at 125 if they move. Unlikely they'd get 125 coming at a $75,000 base salary. They probably get more like 90 to 100. So they've made a bump, and now they're going to market, and they're able to now command another 20 to 40% bump. And we've seen people be able to do that, whether it's through us or not. I also think from a lot of people's perspective, people have gone to market who are in remote positions and have gotten offers where there may be a in-office commute requirement on a weekly basis, whether it's 2 or 3 days. And when they get an extra 10 to 20% bump on a counteroffer, they're more seriously considering it because they're giving up fully remote for more money. And if they get more money and can stay in their current position and stay home, that we've seen sway some people from accepting external positions.
Fascinating. And I'm generally with you on the counteroffer, on the stance that you take on counteroffers. But one observation I've had just from my experience, and I don't know if this is so much true anymore, I'll leave it to you to comment. A lot of times I think the hiring manager is willing to go to bat for someone when they say they're going to leave, right? So the hiring manager, let's say me, I want to keep Maribel because I know she's valuable to me. So I make the case for her to have that counteroffer because she's identified someplace else to work, which Maribel will never actually do, I hope.
No.
Yeah, what I would,
but what's happening too is the other part of that is like the leadership, the executive leadership, upper management might have a really strong stance on that. And, the memories tend to fade over time. So it's just another interesting dynamic. I think sometimes a hiring manager will go to bat for somebody. And I think, at least in my experience, people might stick around a little beyond that 6-month window that you suggest.
sure.
Because the hiring manager went to bat for them and said, you're valuable to me. I need you to stay. Here, I worked it out for you, right?
There are anecdotes in every direction. What
Right.
I would offer as a bit of guidance and wisdom to job seekers is it is far better to have the courage to ask for a salary and raise and be told yes or no than it is to cheat on your employer, go date someone else, and come back with an offer and use it as leverage. It leaves a bad taste in an employer's mouth, whether they went to bat for you or not. And look, there are unique use cases where like somebody did that and they didn't get what they wanted and then they left and then they got the counter and I get that. There's exceptions to every rule, but I think what we want to cultivate in our e-discovery community, what I'd like to cultivate in the e-discovery community is people having the courage to ask for the things that they want out of the gate, because then it makes for a much more decisive decision to leave once that has been denied them and they've had the courage to ask, right?
Fair
If you haven't
point.
had the courage to ask, pardon me for being blunt, don't waste my time and my customers' time using the interview process as a means to get an increase in comp and a raise or a promotion at your current employer. Just have the courage to go ask for it. It's why we ask people who come to us for representation, what do you want? And if we suss out in consulting with them that what they really want is to stay and just get paid more money, then we coach and encourage them to do how to get exactly that. But too often, particularly with people who are earlier in their career, they are afraid to have those hard conversations with their current employer. And sometimes it's easier to go to market than it is to have that when they really want is to stay. So knowing what you want before you enter the job market is critical, because you don't want to burn bridges with anybody along the way, right? Today's rejection is tomorrow's potential window of opportunity. People move as hiring managers between companies, and you might have pissed somebody off over at one firm and then they move to another where you really want to go work, and they don't forget that you handled that interview process in a way that was disadvantageous to them and maybe not in the most professional manner. So you have to think about all these variables. This is a small community e-discovery, right? Yep. People are more like elephants than they're not, in my opinion, with regards to memory.
And it gets around to other people very quickly.
Yes.
The behaviors. And I love that someone in our chat put the answer is always no if you don't ask. So, and it's very true.
Don't ask, don't get.
Yeah, but I think it's also what you just said, right? If they don't know how to ask for it, then go to someone who can help you, right? And coach you into telling people, this is what I want. And yes, it's always a little scary to go to somebody and ask, but again, it's scary not to.
Hard conversations bring us closer together or further apart.
Right. And if you can't have a hard conversation with someone, right, then do you really want to work with them? Right. That honest conversation is what makes a good relationship. Like, I have honest conversations. Mike and I are honest with each other all the time. I'm sure your staff is honest with you, but if you can't have those conversations, it's like any relationship, right?
But just remember, honesty is a two-way street. And sometimes when you ask for things, you may not necessarily get them, and you may have to really reflect on taking constructive criticism to elevate your professional maturity so that you can get them down the road. And I think good hiring managers will be wise in how they dangle carrots as it relates to mapping people's career trajectory within an organization so that there are achievements that are awaiting them that are achievable, right? Milestones.
So we've got a great question, but I think you're going to touch on some of this. The question is, do you think that contract hiring may stay high as companies figure out it's best to do this with the highs and lows of the economy instead of doing what law firms do, attorneys on down constantly over the years, ramping way up with full-time hiring, then a certain
We're going to get to all of that. Yes. If we don't run out of time. Yes. So the last two quick highlights from what's happening right now. Offer acceptance likelihood on first offers received dropped from 75 to 65%, which means people are getting more offers, including counter offers. What we were finding pretty much in the first 3 quarters of 2023 is that it was an almost 80% likelihood that if you were the first offer an active job seeker received an opportunity from, that they were going to take that first offer that they got, right? Bird in the hand was very much the strategy. Just to reflect back on peak 2022 hiring, that statistic was at 45%. You had only a 45% likelihood that being the first to extend an offer was going to ensure acceptance. Now, look, it started to decrease because the speed of hire is accelerating, the job volume is increasing, the cost of talent is decreasing, and skill experience expectations are decreasing. So hiring managers want less expensive, less experienced people. They need to increase their margins because I don't know that many of them have been able to increase their prices through this period of inflation where the cost of talent has increased and the cost of goods have increased. I don't know that everyone in e-discovery has been able to increase their bill rates to coincide with that inflation, which is eating at margin, not to mention the high interest rates, which are eating at a lot of people's margins who are borrowing money. And so they are looking to hire less expensive people. And this is going to be a trend throughout much of the first half of this year. But there will be a lot of opportunity for people under $150,000 in base salary expectation.
Right. And we have another question on salary normalizing, but I think you're going to hit on some of that as we keep going.
Yes. So everyone can get really excited now. Coming soon is the first ever e-discovery jobs report published by True Staffing Partners. This is a 16-page fully comprehensive analysis, not just of 2023, but really of 2020 to present. And is tracking things like contract versus FTE, remote versus in-office, law firm versus vendor salary averages, a variety of different trends. And this report will go really dense and into detail on all of these things and a lot more. And we're going to highlight that over the next 15 minutes, particularly on our direct hire versus versus contract hire. And then we'll get into a few other things too. So this is contract versus direct hire for the person who asked the question a few seconds ago in terms of what the volume will be. And essentially what we've seen is the market react to macroeconomic conditions. meaning that in 2020, you can see that we hit, you know, a 5-year high at 56% of the market being contract. And that makes a lot of sense, right? The pandemic hit, everybody stopped hiring full-time. Unemployment was at almost 15%, which we hadn't seen since 2008, 2009. There were a lot of people out of work and people were very uncertain about the future. And so when there's uncertainty in the macroeconomic market, the job market tends to lean more heavily towards contract. And you can see that it went more contract than full-time in 2020. Now, as we get into 2021, it almost did a complete 180 because the rebound coming out of COVID in Q4 of 2020 and all of the first, you know, 3-4 quarters of 2021 was really, really, really good for business. Lots of people were scaling. 66% of the job market is full-time. We can see that over the next 3 years slowly start to recalibrate. Now, what's healthy about ediscovery, just as a reference point against what's happening in data privacy and cybersecurity, is in data privacy and cybersecurity, we're actually seeing a pretty aggressive increase in contracting, much more aggressive than we are in ediscovery, because a lot of those professionals are non-billable resources. And in ediscovery, the bulk of people in the business are billable resources, whether they're working at service providers or law firms. That constitutes about 90 to 95% of the jobs in the ediscovery job marketplace. So you're seeing more full-time hiring. What is interesting about what we're projecting for 2024 is that we're going to hit about a 50-50 split, right? In the first half of this year, we're going to see a lot more contract hiring relative to full-time. And in the back half of this year, we'll see more full-time relative to contract. The first half of this year is going to be cautious. The back half of this year should be relatively aggressive, we think, on full-time. And we think all the cost savings that companies have been doing for the last 6 to 12 to 24 months will allow them to increase spend as the Fed lowers interest rates and interest rates on borrowed money declines. There's more margin. That margin can be used for talent acquisition. And we expect that to increase full-time hiring towards the back half of this year. But look, this is a sign of a healthy ecosystem. When a job market is a 50-50 split, there's something for almost everyone. What we'll get into next is kind of who there's going to be what for and how much and when, right? Remote versus hybrid is another analysis we break down in our jobs report. And this is like, to me, like my favorite graph that we've ever developed, because it is so reciprocal, right? You could literally see the moment in time when our entire lives as working professionals changed. And everyone went from hiring 4 to 5 days in an office to we are now a 3 or fewer days in an office culture. That is the new normal. Just as the new normal in contract versus FTE should be about a 50-50 split, we think the new normal in remote versus in office is going to be 3 days a week is the new norm. If you are looking to bring someone in 4 to 5 days a week, you will struggle to fill your jobs. There will be less candidates available. They will be more expensive, and the timeline to hire will be significantly longer than hiring somebody hybrid or fully remote. What you're going to see in 22 and 23, these two bars that just popped up, which are, you know, nuanced analysis that Mike had me at after we prepped for this call. The 69% in 2022 of hybrid jobs are jobs that were fully remote, meaning 5 days a week you're at home. But you'll see that in 2023, despite the amount of hybrid jobs in total going up to 92%, up from 89, the amount of fully remote jobs dropped to 38%. What does that mean? It means that by the end of 2022 and the beginning of 2023, most people that had open headcount for full-time hires or contractors where they were fully remote were filled. And people were coveting those jobs because they were harder to find as we got into 2023. But in 2023, what you're going to see is more people said, okay, we can't get them in 4 to 5 days a week, so let's shift down to 3 days, or let's shift from 3 days to 2 days. And that actually got the jobs filled because there was less remote opportunity. Job seekers were more willing to come in 2 to 3 days a week than they were in 2022. And so you're seeing more hybrid, but less fully remote jobs because there's just less of them out there. I can also tell you that the volume of actual human beings that accepted positions in 2022 versus 2023 is significantly higher in 2022. Right? Even 2021 was higher than 2023 in terms of the number of people that swapped positions. Those 2 years, 21 and 22, were the Great Resignation years, right? And we call it that for good reason. because we anticipated true that 2/3 of the e-discovery community switched jobs in those 2 years, right? I mean, we know those were milestone years for us, biggest years in company history, 21 and 22. 2023 is actually for us bigger than 2021, but man, we had to work a lot harder to get those placements made because there were fewer people willing to come into an office. There were fewer total jobs. People wanted to spend less money than they did in 21 and 22. And the amount of people willing to look at jobs in 23 versus 21 and 22 was significantly less because so many people had changed jobs in the last 2 years. So most people who changed jobs in 21 and 22 don't want to change again in 2023. So what does the talent pool look like? Who's available to hiring managers? And I think what we're going to see in 2024 is somewhat of a mirror image to 2023 in the first 2 quarters. And then in the back 2 quarters, I think we're going to start to see people moving jobs who took jobs in 2021 and 22 again.
I think you've answered a lot of the questions we had in the chat. So this is terrific. Mike, any thoughts so far?
No, just fascinating.
Okay.
It really
awesome.
is. I'm glad you find it fascinating. I do too. It's really interesting, the behavior and how, particularly the symmetry of that last graph and how it changes. It's just, I was saying on our prep call, like, to participate in that cultural shift, to me, is what it must have been like during the Industrial Revolution, right? Oh, this is the new way that we make product or provide service. And the new way is 3 days or less in an office.
And so to some of the commentary in the chat, just as a general, I know we talk about this every month, right? Is the sense that it's becoming more of the employer controlling the situation versus the employee? Because during COVID, it was easy to make the case that I need to work from home. I think it's getting hard. I think it's getting harder to make that case. Or fully.
Employers are less willing to bend, but what we saw happen halfway through 2023 is so many of our customers went from 5 days to 3 days. So many more went from 3 days to 2 days. And to answer Peter Bennett's question on the chat, we found that, and this is a stat, if you drop your in-office requirements as an employer from 3 days to 2 days, you increase the amount of people that will look at the opportunity by 50%. So if you got 10 candidates that you got resumes for with 3 days, you'd get 15, maybe 20 at 2 days. That's how many more candidates would be interested when you shift down. So yeah, these strategies around talent acquisition and how to attract talent and how am I going to retain my talent are new normals we've never dealt with before, right? I mean, I've been in staffing for nearly 25 years. I've never had to ask every single person, and we interview hundreds of people a week, you know, how many days in an office are you willing to come in? If we got you more money, would you be willing to come in 3 instead of 2 or 4 instead of 2? How much money? What is, you know, like, I mean, these are the kind of things we have to talk to people about, because Mike, there is still negotiation here, right? This is also why you want a talent agent, because a talent agent knows the inside of their customer and can tell you these are the levers you can push and pull and get somewhere. You might be able to get more money, but there is no way they're going to compromise on 3 days a week. Or you're not going to get more money, but you might be able to get them from 3 to 2 days, or from, you know, a 1 day a month to 1 day a quarter, or whatever the case may be. There's so much nuance that goes into qualifying somebody before you even assess their skills, that is unique now to the job market, that has not been codified. And this jobs report aims to do that, to codify those things for our community.
I think it's fascinating as well that this is even a negotiating point, but yeah, understand. Times have changed.
Yes. So we've had this hovering for a bit, not much to see here other than it's pretty much stayed the same as December. We can go to the next slide. Vendors, same thing. We haven't seen any dramatic changes over the last 30 days, mainly because things slowed down a little bit the last week of December and the first week of January. Next slide. This is really dense stuff, and I know we've only got 5 minutes. So I encourage everybody to read the jobs report and come to us with your questions. But one of the most fascinating things that we've tracked, and it speaks to some of the points I've made today, is the percentage of a salary increase a job seeker can get at the point of hire. And here's 2022. And what you'll see in 2022 is if you had 0 to 1 year experience in e-discovery, you actually had to take a pay cut to break into the industry. Now, if you were 4 to 10 years experience, you were commanding anywhere from a 35 to, 20 to 40% increase in comp. So at 6 to 8 years, those are the people in highest demand, project managers, seasoned analysts, and people that were making 100, 120,000 were getting bumps to 150, 165, 175,000 in base compensation. This is 2022. So 6 to 10 years of experience got highest demand, lowest supply, and thus the biggest bump in pay by moving jobs in 2022. Now, if you go and look at 2023, very different. 6 to 10 years, they're only getting 15 to 10% bumps, and there are far fewer jobs for those people out there. So money may not be the primary motivator if you're making $150,000 plus in e-discovery right now. Conversely, if you've got 1 to 5, 6 years experience, we're seeing base salary increases in 2023, which we expect to continue to see trending into 2024 for the first 2 quarters, of 25 to 32% increases at point of hire. So if you're a project manager right now and you're making $100,000 and you've got 3 years of experience, I've got a job for you at $130,000, $140,000. We can get you that kind of bump in pay at the point of hire right now. Come to me in another year, I can't promise that, because the way the market behaved changes. And in 2022, people wanted more experience. Now, why? Same thing we just discussed, the Great Resignation. They were losing people, right? The amount of attrition was so aggressive. I don't have time to think about saving $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 on a hire. I just lost 3 people because I changed my in-office requirements from 0 days to 2 days a week, and 3 people resigned because there was plenty of jobs out there for fully remote people in 2021 and 22, and now there aren't. So it will be harder in the first half of this year for people making 150 plus to make job moves unless you're in sales, and really ripe with opportunity for big bumps in pay for people in these 0 to 6 years of experience in e-discovery.
So Jared, we've got a few questions that I wanted to get to. So first question, and we know, where are you getting the numbers for these charts? Are these numbers for only true staffing hires? And are these hirings focused in one area of the US? They're not, because going back a few charts, we see that it's across the US.
Correct. So these numbers are across the US, and actually probably some of these that are non-salary numbers, like percentage and increase, may be on a global level, because we do plenty of work in Germany and Australia and Singapore, UK, Tokyo, you name it. The rest of the data comes from people, true places, but also all the people that we're interviewing. So not everybody that we represent do we wind up getting a job. Some people wind up getting jobs through other venues, but we know what they're getting paid, how much of an increase they made. I mean, we're privy to all of this information. So we're aggregating all of that. Anybody that we're tracking who's somebody that we represent, we're getting our data from that actual behavior. So a lot of it are people we place. We have a pretty high placement ratio, right? We've got, I think, like an 85% fill rate on all jobs we receive. So if you're somebody looking to hire and you come to us, there's an 85% likelihood we're going to fill that job. So we feel good that this data is, and these are hundreds and hundreds of placements. So this data
Jared,
is indicative of a broad market. Yes, sir.
Is there sort of is there a sub message here that someone with 10 plus years experience who's making really good money should really hang on to that, not seek more money? They're not going to get more money. What's the message there? What's the message there for the veteran is my question.
So for the veteran, I mean, look, a lot of our veterans are retiring. Let's be really honest. I've seen more people retire in the last year than I probably saw in the last 5. So there are going to be roles vacated that allow for opportunity for people to move into leadership positions. And you'd be surprised how many of my customers are not promoting from within when these retired directors or managers of lit support or client service directors decide to bow out of the industry. They tend to go to look from the outside, from within, a lot of times because they don't want to create more attrition internally by promoting one person over another. That has been a strategy for a lot of our customers, and also an opportunity to reinvent. I mean, the last year was the year of AI. People are rethinking how they do things. Adoption of the cloud is now the new norm. We're about to see a little bit of a revolution in the industry in terms of how people do business. We're seeing law firms insource more talent and technology than we did in the previous 3 years. And so, look, there is still room for people to grow in the industry. Maybe not right now, and the ability for them, based on the charts we're looking at here, to maximize the increase in base comp by switching jobs it's probably better for most veterans to wait until late 2024, early 2025 to get the most out of their move when there's going to be more opportunity. But my advice to everybody, aside from all that, if you're a veteran, if you're 10 plus years, is if someone like me comes to you with an opportunity that's right for you, look at it, because there's not going to be that many. So if you're still out there thinking there's another career move for me, or I want to stay in the industry and elevate up, when an opportunity arises, look at it, because there won't be 100 of them like there will for project managers and analysts and analytics professionals. And I'll also say this, Mike, a lot of it is reinvention, right? And we may not know what that reinvention looks like until this whole AI world evolves, which is also going to involve the creation of a whole new vendor ecosystem, which we haven't seen the likes of since I got into the space in the early 2000s. And I am hopeful that the birth of AI will birth a new vendor ecosystem. There will be new technologies. There will be new jobs. There will be all these new things. Probably not this year, a little bit in 25, and a lot in 2026. So we may just have to be patient and thoughtful if you're a veteran about making smart strategic moves.
So we're over time, but I want to get to some of these questions. So if our audience wants to stay on for a little longer, I want to just go through each of these questions that we have.
I'm happy to stay as long as everyone wants.
Perfect. The jobs report we already discussed, but when is that going to be released?
It'll be released the Monday of Legal Week, which I think is January 29th. It'll be available in digital format on our website. We'll be in full force at Legal Week. And if you want to request a copy, you can email us at info@truestaffingpartners.com, or you can reach out to our head of business development, Rachel Hare. She's our senior vice president. She just got promoted. Congrats, Rachel. At Rachel, AEL, at truestaffingpartners.com. We'll make sure you get a copy. And we'll have copies at Legal Week. So if you run into someone from True, ask for a copy and you'll get one in your hand.
You may even take some of those for the ACEDS booth. So let's see. But I think you're also, if you're an ACEDS member, Jared and Mike and I chatted, and ACEDS members will be able to access it from the member portal when they log in. Then next question. And we love this question, right? We love this because it's not just about ACEDS, but it's about a lot of different certifications and training in the market. And you have a resounding yes on this. Are there any statistics on how street cred, like an ACEDS certification, change numbers in one direction or the other?
Yeah, so an ACEDS certification is going to give you competitive advantage over the people that don't have it. It's an instant credibility. It immediately ingratiates you to the hiring manager. It shows self-investment. So yeah, I mean, our ACEDS people tend to get interviews over ones that don't have it when they're put side by side and their skill sets are equal. I also think what we found with our people that have ACEDS certifications is that they tend to be a bit more articulate and a bit more polished on interviews in talking about what they know. It gives them the vernacular and the confidence to talk about their career in a way that isn't just what buttons to push. And that has proven to be something that we've seen from the candidates we represent that have the certification. They do better on interviews as a result of it, for sure.
And we've discussed last year, just because we've constantly getting this question, that we're going to be working on some reporting with True Staffing around ACEDS certifications and what that looks like for the market. Okay, next question. Are there consulting opportunities for veterans like myself in that highly compensated category?
The short answer is yes. So it depends on, if you're a ESI lawyer, that's one trajectory, right? There's plenty of opportunity there. And I don't mean doc review. I mean, really interpreting subpoena and guiding litigators, or managing expectations for the OGC at your corporation. If you want to be in corporate, the best way to break in is through a contract, because they are the ones that are most risk adverse to hiring full-time employees right now, because they have stock prices they're trying to increase that we're still digging out of based on the highs of 2021. So, yes, I would say this, though. What we've found and what we serve as for a lot of those independent consultants, that what we would call our high-end consultants or high-end ESI attorneys, is they want to go out and consult, but they don't want to work for a big consulting firm because they don't want to be held to a quota of sales and revenue generation or origination of business or billable hours. And so we at TrueStir serve as their business development arm, and we go to market and market them to our customers opportunistically as much as we do reactionary for opportunities. And we find that about 1 in 4 of our contractors that we place with customers of ours come from us introducing the candidate to the customer, not the customer coming to us and saying, I need someone like this. Yes.
Excellent. All right, next question. I'm going to jump to a different question. With the rise of AI and enhanced automation, do you see a reduction of lit support positions? I think this is an important question everybody wants to know. Am I going to be replaced?
Definitely not. You are not going to be replaced, and you probably won't even be asked to reinvent in the next 6 to 24 months. After that, I don't know what's going to happen. I think we need to see some technologies begin to take market share and capture our imagination and attention at some place in the market that they differentiate from tar and cal in order for them to be adopted broadly enough for them to impact the job market. I think we're years away from that. I think a lot of people still feel like it's still cheaper and just as effective to use the methodologies and technologies we have today, as opposed to leaning in on something new that is untested and unproven. But I will say this, I think there are a lot of people out there training modules, and they may not be training them necessarily for consumer consumption, but rather for their existing customer base in order to create a more enhanced relationship and continue to own that customer's business based on the unique proprietary developments they're creating for them using AI. So, look, I don't think we're going to see a silver bullet AI technology that eliminates talent or technology in this space, probably ever, but certainly not anytime soon.
Don't believe the hype.
Well, but don't ignore it either, Mike, right? Like, don't ignore it either, because it's coming and it will eventually change things. But any of us who've been in this long enough know that nothing changes fast in legal technology and that we are slow adopters. And the thing that people should be really looking toward in terms of what will happen is, what are the corporate clients going to require their outside counsel, and thus the vendors, to provide as it relates to AI, because they're not going to pay for it to be done manually that way anymore, because they know other law firms will do it using AI in a cheaper, more effective, or flat rate model. What are those trends that are going to start to emerge in 2024 that then drive change at other law firms in order to compete for business, where AI is being integrated into the process in a way that differentiates competition?
Yes, I would agree. And I think what we can say is, anyone who is in lit support, think about upskilling, like different certificate programs, understand AI. There's things that you can do now just to upskill yourself.
It's good enough to be well read right now.
Yes.
And look, if it's something you're passionate about, I'd encourage you to do what a lot of people did in 2024, which is start branding themselves as
2023.
I'm sorry, 2023. Start branding themselves as AI ESI people, because this is exactly what happened when TAR hit the scene, right? People started branding themselves as experts, and that's how they got adoption, right? Because they went and branded themselves, maybe even some of them before they had really done the work, they had done the research. So do the research.
Yes. And I'm going to leave us with one last question. What software platform specific certifications are most important?
Can I answer?
How many are there left to get? There's only like 5 companies left, guys. Look, Relativity's got a stranglehold on the marketplace when it comes from a talent perspective. And other vendors, and I've spoken to many of their CEOs about this, would be very wise to simply take the page out of Relativity's playbook, where they created a certification ecosystem that became highly credible and desirable, because that is part of the reason why Relativity has so much adoption from their customer base, because they know they can then go to the job market and get people with those certs that can wield that technology and plug and play right into their practice. It's a little harder to do that with some of the other certs, although they are gaining ground and momentum, particularly at Reveal. But look, get them all, guys. There's not that many left, and most of them are free and online. And if you don't have them, you should get them. But if you're asking me which are going to potentially get you more money in your next job or give you the opportunity to have the most jobs available, it's Relativity, right?
And ACEDS.
I'm gonna push back a little
ACEDS
bit.
isn't a technical certification.
It's not, but it helps.
I'm gonna push back because look, I think it's great, but here's the difference. You don't get to choose what software you're gonna work with when you take a job. You're gonna use whatever software that company is using. What you get from an ACEDS certification, more important than the technical skills to operate that particular piece of software, is understanding the handful of things that you just got to get right, whatever software you're using.
Of course.
And that's the difference.
It's apples and oranges, right? It's apples and oranges. You shouldn't choose between one or the other. If you're choosing between one and the other, you're not looking at your career in a holistic perspective. ACEDS is a education. Relativity, Everlaw, Reveal certifications are vocations. It's like getting your Microsoft certified engineer that, you know, everybody had to have in the late 90s, early 2000s, right? It's apples and oranges. So please don't misunderstand me. And quite frankly, I tell a lot of people, particularly ones that are early career in e-discovery, get your ACEDS, because getting your ACEDS first will make you stand out in terms of the polish, the level of thoughtful articulation that you will have on an interview, much less the job. And because you're early in your career and at a lower price point, they'll teach you the relativity skills, right?
Yes.
I've always said that. I could teach you software. I can't teach you how to execute best practices in a consistent and defensible way.
But not everybody's willing to teach. Not everybody feels the same way.
Right.
Fair.
Yeah, that's the focus. Well, this was great. We're at almost 1:15. We went over time. We try to keep this down to 30 minutes. If you have more questions, please feel free to reach out to any of us, connect with us on LinkedIn, send us an email. We are always available, but you can find us every month. We're back with Ion ESI. So please make sure to join us. And yes, let's talk a little bit about your two new hires before we've got 3 minutes.
They're not new hires. They've been here forever. Alette's been with me for literally like 15 years. So she's been here forever. She's the highest ranking person in the staff. She will be at Legal Week. If you're in e-discovery and you don't know Annette, you need to meet Annette. She has access to all the jobs in the entire world. Rachel is our head of business development. So if you're looking to hire in e-discovery, you want to talk to Rachel. She'll get you onboarded with Truer, give you some really good guidance, wisdom, collateral, research, market intelligence to help you make more informed decisions. But we'll have a lot of people there. Sarah Roberts will be there. She just got promoted to senior vice president. Congrats. Jess Barr, she just got promoted to senior vice president. Congrats. We have a new hire in the UK. We've got feet on the street in the UK. Michael Fox is with us. He's got several years of experience in e-discovery and cybersecurity. We're really excited about him joining our ranks. So if you're in London, go have a beer with Mike. And Brittany Hall was just promoted to Director of Candidate Sourcing here at True, which is a whole new department and division that we've structured at the end of last year, which we believe will enhance the customer and candidate acquisition experience here. And we're really excited to have Brittany in that role. She's been with us for a number of years as well.
And I have to say, Jared, I've known you for many years, so it's awesome to see the growth that True Staffing has had.
Thank you.
From its beginnings to now. So I am super excited for you and the team, and can't wait to see what else happens by what we got to announce in 2025. So we're looking forward to it. Thank you, everybody. Please stop by, visit Jared, myself, and Mike during Legal Week if you will be there. If you won't, we will see you somewhere around the country. We're trying to hit a lot of different things this year. And if not, we'll be here on Ion ESI next month. So we hope to see you there. Bye.